Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie Antboy begins with a mad scientist conducts experiments with an ant, aiming to use it to strengthen his legs, since inflammation in his joints prevents him from walking due to severe pain. The man accidentally drops his microscope, and the ant that was being used as a test subject manages to escape. Pelle Norman is a 12-year-old boy who can't stand living a normal life anymore. He feels like just a small ant in a big anthill, tiny and insignificant. His biggest dream is to acquire some special ability, something that sets him apart from other people. On the other hand, Amanda Summerfelt is a girl who attracts attention wherever she goes because of her beauty and grace. Even though she studies in the same class as Pelle, they have never exchanged a single word. The next day during class, the teacher explains the assignment that must be turned in the following week. The students will need to give a presentation about a living person who has done something grand and significant for the city. At that moment, Ida, Amanda's sister, claims that there's no one interesting in that place, and the teacher suggests the young girl give a presentation about her father, Mr. Summerfelt. Next, the teacher asks the students to pair up for the assignment, and Amanda looks back in search of a partner. Pelle smiles at her, believing he will be invited to help her with the project. However, Amanda invites one of her friends to be her partner. At the end of class, Pelle sees two bullies attacking a boy from his class and decides to throw an apple at them. At that moment, he becomes their target and has to run to avoid being caught. During the chase, he hides in the bushes, and the two bullies give up looking for him after realizing Pelle entered the yard of the late Mrs. Gemelka's house. While he remains hidden, the escaped ant climbs onto Pelle's leg, and he starts to itch. When the bullies leave, the boy decides to take a look at the house and, at that moment, is bitten by the insect. After capturing the ant, his vision starts to blur, and before losing consciousness, Pelle sees the figure of a man approaching. Then he faints. Hours later, the boy wakes up and walks back home. It's already night. His parents were worried, not knowing where he was. Pelle then claims he was playing soccer with some classmates and goes straight to bed because he's too tired to eat dinner. During his sleep, the boy has some nightmares about ants and wakes up hungry in the middle of the night. He raids the fridge and devours all the sweets he finds. When he gets up in the morning, he finds various wrappers and food leftovers scattered on his bedroom floor. During breakfast, his parents watch the news, where a journalist interviews Mr. Summerfelt about the disappearance of thousands of genetically modified fleas after a robbery at the pharmaceutical company Isopharm. After pouring milk into his cereal, Pelle notices something strange is happening as the box gets stuck to his hands. Then, when he grabs his glass of juice, he ends up breaking it because he is much stronger than before. When he arrives at school, Pelle walks quickly through the hallways and accidentally bumps into Wilhelm, the nerd he defended from the bullies the day before. The comic book-obsessed boy sees Pelle breaking the classroom door handle and becomes obsessed with him, believing the boy has superpowers. In gym class, the teacher challenges one of the students to a stick duel. He picks Pelle as his first challenger and attacks him with a giant cotton swab. The boy tries to defend himself but is thrown out of the ring. For the second time, the young man gets a new chance to fight back, and this time he is determined to win. After dodging his teacher's blows and blocking his attack, the boy throws the mustached man far away. Scared by his own strength, Pelle runs away, and Wilhelm confirms his theory. At the end of class, when Pelle is going home, the boy goes to question him and asks where he got those superpowers. At that moment, Pelle sees Dr. Gemelka, son of Mrs. Gemelka, entering the house. Scared, the boy ignores him, and Wilhelm leaves. Although he doesn't know how to explain why he acquired those abilities, Pelle is excited about the idea of being a superhero, especially since he knows he can use this to win Amanda's heart. While acting out a battle with his teddy bear, the boy ends up destroying his bedroom wall and thus gets an idea of the extent of his powers. The next morning during recess, he decides to tell Wilhelm the truth and says he got those powers after being bitten by an ant. Excited by the news, Wilhelm decides to help him become a true superhero. When they leave school, he invites Pelle to his house, and the boy is surprised to see his classmates' huge collection of action figures. The duo begins to research the main abilities of an ant and discovers that this small insect has one of the most powerful jaws in the animal kingdom. So Wilhelm decides to A test is conducted, and Pelle is asked to bite a book. Both are impressed when they realize how easily the boy managed to tear off a piece of those pages. Through some experiments, they keep testing new abilities, and Pelle discovers he has a very keen sense of smell. On the other hand, the boy is not able to fly. Will helps him put together his superhero costume. After a few tries and some research on the internet, They finally find the perfect uniform. The discoveries continue. And after relieving himself in the school, Pele discovers he can make his number one come out highly corrosive. This is actually one of the defense mechanisms used by ants, which release formic acid through large venom glands. With his mask and his completed costume, the two friends now need to choose a name for the new kid superhero. After several guesses, they conclude that Antboy is the most appropriate codename since Ant-Man already exists, and Pele is still a boy. The duo is on a stakeout in a parking lot, waiting for an opportunity to fight crime, and Hellman goes to the convenience store to buy some candy. At that moment, Pele witnesses a robbery and chases after the thief, debuting his Antboy costume. He orders the man to return what he took. Seeing the boy climbing the wall using only his hands, the robber decides to run away, but the little hero manages to catch him. Minutes later, the police arrive and arrest the criminal. Pele is hiding when he sees his friend arriving at the scene and tells him everything that happened. The boy wants to demonstrate his new ability but can no longer climb the wall. Back in Will's room, Pele discovers he needs to eat sugar to recharge his powers, and his friend makes him a belt so he can store candy during missions. Then, Will gives him a small communicator so they can keep in touch while Antboy fights crime. In the following weeks, the little superhero becomes a headline in all the news outlets, and the city's residents grow curious about his true identity. Pele has never been so happy, because for the first time in his life, he was being noticed and no longer felt like a useless member of the anthill. Antboy began to consider himself the protector of his city and took on the responsibility of catching all the villains, including those who bullied the children at his school. One night, Amanda is in her room doing schoolwork. Instead of presenting her father's story, the young woman decided to make a presentation based on Antboy and his numerous contributions to the city. She sees in her mirror the reflection of a frightening man and starts screaming. Hearing his sister's screams, Ada runs to the room, but it's already too late. Amanda ends up being taken, leaving only her necklace behind. The next morning, while Pele is in class, he hears the cries for help of a student, and everyone leaves their classrooms to see what is happening. Suddenly, Antboy starts climbing the building and saves his classmate. At that moment, he discovers that it was actually a dummy. It was all a trap set by Ada to attract Antboy's attention and ask for his help to rescue Amanda. She shows the video her father received that morning in which Amanda is trapped in a glass cell. To get the girl back, the criminal who uses the codename Flea demands $20 million as payment and orders Mr. Summers, Amanda's father, to step down as CEO of Isofarm. Ada then asks Antboy for help to find her sister, and Pele decides to take her to his headquarters, that is, Will's room. Upon seeing the video, the boy claims that Mr. Summers is the real-life Lex Luthor, a typical rich businessman who acts like an exemplary citizen, but hides his strong desire for power. Ada gets annoyed at hearing her father spoken ill of, but since her sister's life is at risk, she decides to help them in the investigation and points out the main suspects. The girl shows the necklace Amanda was wearing the day she was taken, and Pele discovers a new ability. The boy has a sharp sense of smell and is able to track the victim through the scent of that accessory. The trio then follows the path indicated by Antboy's sense of smell and arrives at the house of the late Mrs. Gomelka. Pele says he was in the garden of that house when he was bitten and says that's how he got his powers. At that moment, everything starts to make sense. Determined to save Amanda, the boy faces his fears and decides to enter that creepy place. His sense of smell guides him to a basement whose door is locked with a padlock. So, the hero decides to relieve himself and use the corrosive liquid to destroy the metal. Upon entering the room, he finds a place similar to a laboratory, full of trees and insects trapped in glass boxes. Will and Ada are outside and contact him through the communicator. Minutes later, while walking through the basement, Pele finds Amanda and looks for a way to free her. At that moment, the boy senses something approaching and is surprised by the arrival of Flea, the villain who captured Amanda. Antboy also ends up being captured and orders Flea to release the girl, as she has never harmed anyone. The man then reveals that he captured her to punish her father, the CEO of Isofarm, who was responsible for ruining his life. Flea says he was one of the biochemists who worked at Isofarm. His innovative research allowed, if a serum was produced that contained the antibodies of a rare species of ant, this serum was capable of curing the most diverse types of diseases, and the first test subject to use it was his mother, Mrs. Gomel. After using the medicine, the tumors in her body became smaller and smaller, but all the research became useless after Mercedes started making cuts at the company. Vime needed to save resources, and Dr. Gwemelker's research was the first to be shut down. After that, his mother ended up dying from the disease, and Polga began to plan his revenge. In his personal laboratory, he began some experiments with other species and, from a flea, managed to create a serum that removed the arthritis from his legs and made them 100 times stronger. Unlike Pele, who only needed to eat sugar to maintain his powers, after having his body transformed, Polga began to ingest large amounts of blood to sustain himself. The man claims to know the true identity of Antboy and says that if it weren't for his powers, Amanda wouldn't even know he existed. At that moment, Polga hears police sirens approaching the house and decides to flee. Through the communicator, Will Harmo sees the whole conversation and decides to ask for help. Knowing he is surrounded, the villain flees. The police invade the place to rescue Amanda and Antboy. Realizing he failed to complete his mission, Pele realizes he is just a small ant who believed he was big and strong, when in reality he wasn't even able to defend himself. The young man then gives up being a superhero, but Wilhelmi tries to convince him to continue since Polga is still at large. Furious, Pele hands the costume to his friend and says that if he wants to catch the villain, he will have to become Antboy. The next day, Pele sees Amanda talking with her friends and telling them what happened while she was missing. The boy then remembers Polga's words and realizes that if it weren't for Antboy's powers, Amanda wouldn't even know he existed. Now Pele is alone and friendless again, as even Will has really distanced himself from him. The poor boy has become invisible again and concludes that being ignored is better than being the center of attention. Suddenly, during class, the school is attacked and the students run desperately outside. At that moment, Wilhelm appears and says that Polga is attacking the school. Upon hearing this, Pele decides to run away and says the police will take care of it. Determined to get rid of the threat, Will goes to the supply closet and grabs some cans of insecticide, then puts on the Antboy mask and goes after Dr. Gamelka. As he walks through the hallways, he finds a little girl hiding in a locker and advises her to run far away. Minutes later, all the lockers are destroyed, and Polga appears to capture his new target. When the girl who was hiding manages to leave the school, she tells all her classmates that she was saved by Antboy. Hearing this, Pele quickly realizes that his friend is in danger and goes after him. While searching for Will, the boy enters the theater room and finds an identical Antboy costume. When the real superhero, Polga realizes he captured an imposter and goes after Pele. The boy's powers are weakened because it's been hours since he last ate any sweets, so all he can do is run until he finds a vending machine and replenishes his body. However, before Pele can save his friend, Polga captures Will and flees to the forest. Immediately, Antboy grabs a bicycle and goes after them. Pele finds his friend's glasses along the way and follows his scent, trying to find him. Wilhelm is tied to a tree and being used as bait to attract the real Antboy. Before the two young men can escape, Polga throws Pele far away. At that moment, Will manages to escape and contacts the superhero. Together, they come up with a plan to capture Polga. Will hides behind a tree while Antboy fights his enemy. When Dr. Gamelka starts feeding to increase his powers, Will Roms approaches slowly and destroys the blood reservoir, causing the liquid to start leaking. So, when the two mutants face off, Pele manages to hit his opponent and knock him down. Polga tries to get up, but as his powers weaken, the inflammation in his joints returns and the villain can barely walk. On the other hand, Pele is stronger than ever. Like ants, the boy is able to lift 50 times his own weight and uses this ability to throw his opponent far away. After his first victory in the fight against evil, the duo returns home and watches on TV the arrest of Dr. Gwebel Crew. With Polga's arrest, Mr. Summerst goes on the news to publicly thank Antboy for his great help. That night, Pele goes to visit Amanda, and the boy thanks her for saving him. She leans in to kiss the superhero, but Antboy says he is there to talk to Ada. Upon hearing this, the girl, who is used to being the center of attention, becomes furious and leaves. At that moment, Pele has the opportunity to thank Ada for her help and is surprised to discover that from the beginning, the girl knew his true identity. The next day, Will goes to his friend's house to tell him about his idea of uniform. Now he plans to fight against crime alongside Antboy, just like Batman and Robin. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos. See you next time.